I spent one day finishing my work in progress projects from 2025 in order to start the new year fresh. So if you're anything like me, you start a bunch of projects in 2025 with the full intention of finishing them in like a week, and now it's 2026 and you have a pile of stuff that needs to be done. So before we get too deep into 2026, it is currently the middle of January, I'm gonna go ahead and finish these projects here so they're not weighing down on my mind through 2026 and, 2027. The first things I started on were these linen pants. I had thrifted them a while back ago and I wasn't too happy with the color because they were see-through, and the size. They were a bit too tight on my thighs. To remedy both of these problems, I'm going to go ahead and dye them and add a ribbon to the side. I didn't have any green dye, but I did have the components to make green dye, so I decided to do that. This is a very brown looking green, so that's fine. Brown also works for this project. So they did indeed turn out green. A little bit more muted than I was hoping for, but still green. So what I'm going to do next is take these side seams here and seam rip them all the way up to the top, and then I'm going to add that beautiful jacquard ribbon as an expander. I quickly abandoned the idea of a seam ripper because that would take way too long, and decided to just use my scissors to cut the seam instead. I cut all the way up to the pocket, and I actually ended up removing the pocket anyways because it was just too complicated. Next, I took this beautiful jacquard ribbon and pinned it to the side seam of the pants. I used a zigzag stitch to secure it to the side so it wouldn't fray. I then flipped the ribbon over to the other side of the side seam that I had cut open and pinned it right sides together. Once both sides have been sewn together, I flipped it inside out to have this beautiful ribbon inlay. To make sure the ribbon stayed flat, I did a top stitch on either side. Up next, I had these 3 tablecloths I had thrifted, and I was going to turn this one into a skirt. Luckily, it was a round tablecloth, so it made a really simple circle skirt. All I had to do was fold it in half and cut out my waist. Since the hem was already finished, all I needed to do was add a waistband. Using leftover wool from cloaks, I just made a long rectangle that was the size of my waist and enough that I could make it into a channel. I accidentally found this technique where I sewed the waistband on and then flipped it halfway over so that it would tuck neatly underneath the seam allowance. I did this all the way around the skirt until I had a finished waistband. Off camera, I decided to channel through the elastic because trust me, you do not want to see that struggle. And then I just added a top stitch to the top and a holding stitch to the middle so that the elastic wouldn't shift around when I wore it. One of my next projects was finishing up these bunting banners that I had made for my Ren Fair booth. I had made 2 11-foot long ones, but I needed a third one. I had most of the pieces cut out except for these satin brown that I had left over from cloaks, and these linen ones that needed to be sewn together. Pinning them right sides together, I stitched around the edges, turned them inside out, and added a top stitch to all 4. To attach the flags to an actual ribbon, I actually just used bias tape. It's really easy to just shove the triangles in there and fold it over so there's no raw edges, and it also connects them together. I did this for all of the triangles for the complete 11-foot banner. One of the projects that had been kicking around the longest was this Linus Tech Tip sports bra that I had got a while back ago. It was a little bit too big and had gapping in the armholes, so all I needed to do was bring it in on the sides and add a dart into the bust. It was actually like a 15-minute project that I had procrastinated for so long. I'm kind of kicking myself for waiting this long because this is a really comfortable bra, but you live and you learn. Another quick and easy project was this thrifted Shein skirt that my mom had got me. It was pretty good, I like the shape, I like the color, except for this stupid plastic lining. So, I think this skirt is going to be pretty easy because I don't need to do too much modifications to it. I just need to remove this horrible plasticky lining. And I think if I just turn it inside out, like that, then I should just be able to kind of cut this around. This is a little see-through though, so I'm a little bit worried on that, but if that's the case, then I'll just go ahead and attach another lining. Finally, for our last project was the quickest. It was just dyeing these tights to be black. And you will never guess it, but I just dyed them black. That's it. These pants turned out pretty good. I'm kind of upset with the dye job being a little bit splotchy in the front. But it's no longer see-through, and it's now widened at the thighs, which is always a big plus. Plus, I think the ribbon is kind of cute. The circle skirt is one of my favorites that I did. It was really simple and easy to do, and it turned out just the cutest. I cannot wait to wear this more when it becomes a little bit warmer here. The little scrap fabric banner also came together really quickly. I had already made 2 of these before, so it was just finishing up my scraps. The sport bra is also one of my favorites. It just came together so quickly and made it just 10 times more comfortable and easy to wear. As you can see, I added this armhole dart right here to help with the gaping and made it smaller. Nice. The Shein skirt came out a little bit weird. I had just cut off the lining and called it a day, but it did make it a lot more see-through, which I was worried about. I might come back and revisit this one a little bit later when I have more willpower. The tights ended up not working exactly how I wanted to. I ended up using a non-synthetic black dye, which didn't do anything to synthetic tights, so I just dyed them navy blue. So while I didn't end up finishing everything in one day, I got pretty close to. The only thing I needed extra time on was the pants right here, and that's just because I started sewing them really late, and whenever I sew really late into the night, I start making a lot of mistakes and I get frustrated, so I ended up just saving it for the next day. I also wasn't able to make anything out of this fabric here. I was originally going to make another skirt, like out of the tablecloth, but I think I want to do something else with it, and I needed a little bit more time to workshop that. Same with this fabric right here. I do want to make it into a skirt, but that's for a different project for Ren Fair, so I'm going to save that for that video. Overall, it was really nice to be able to get my work in progress pile down to almost 0. So if you have any work in progress projects that you're holding off on, the scariest part is honestly just starting. Once I got the ball rolling, it was all pretty quick to finish, so if you're stuck in that like paralysis mindset of having too many projects and not enough time, just start chipping away at one. And a question I have for y'all is, what should I do with this fabric? Do you have any plans? Well, that's all for this video. I hope you enjoyed watching me turn my work in progress projects into an actual finished pile of projects. Thank y'all so much for watching, and I will see you in the next time.